The scanner screams, and in 11 seconds, everything I thought I knew about myself dies. Not the good kind of scream. The kind that makes two soldiers reach for sidearms they don't fully trust yet, 3 days into an apocalypse that hasn't handed out a manual. I'm standing in line. Assessment Station 3. 6 hours on my feet, watching the sky's leftover cracks bleed orange into a Tuesday afternoon that used to mean nothing and now means everything. Ethan, you're up. The soldier doesn't look at me. Doesn't need to. I'm just the next name on a clipboard, in a line of names, in a city that stopped counting bodies 2 days ago. I walk to the scanner. A woman in a lab coat waves a wand over my arms without making eye contact, the universal gesture of someone who has done this 400 times today and expects the 401st to be exactly as boring. My arms are covered. Shoulder to wrist, both sides. 12 years of ink from my uncle's shop. People used to ask why I bothered. Tattoos nobody could see under a long sleeve. I never had a good answer. I just liked them. The wand beeps. It doesn't stop beeping. The woman's eyes snap up like she's been slapped. Sir. Step to the side room. Now. Behind me, somebody laughs. Of course somebody laughs. Guy probably jammed the machine with all that trash ink. I don't need to turn around to know who it is. Marcus Vale. Class president face. The kind of guy who looks like he was born already knowing he'd survive the end of the world. 3 days in, and he's already got a following, a nervous little orbit of civilians circling him like he's a son, because he manifested a glowing sword mark on his forearm during the initial event. First confirmed S-tier in the city. People have been treating him like scripture ever since. Careful, Marcus, I say. Trash Inc. built this whole tournament your power's about to lose. Cute. He doesn't even look up from his little crowd. Go get your malfunction sorted, tattoo boy. I don't answer. I follow the woman into the side room. Here's the part nobody in that line would have believed if you'd told them 10 minutes earlier. 2 more scientists are already hunched over a monitor. Not bored. Not processing line bored. Whispering like they found something they're scared of bored. Sir. Please sit. I sit. They run the wand again, slower. On the monitor, my tattoos light up one by one, in a color that doesn't belong to any tier I've heard whispered about. Not the common blue. Not the rare purple. Not even the gold everyone's been buzzing about since Marcus's reveal. Black. Edged in something that looks like it's burning from the inside. That's not possible. A mutter, not meant for me. Run it again. Same result. Sir. The lead scientist's voice changes completely. Gone is processing line flat. Now she sounds like she's talking to someone she isn't sure she's allowed to talk to like that. Do you know what these markings are? Tattoos. 12 years of them. Raven. Mountain range. Some geometric thing I got on a dare. They aren't decorative anymore. Do you understand what SSS tier means? I don't. Nobody's briefed me on rankings beyond the fact that everyone's terrified of them, and Marcus is apparently sitting near the top with his one glowing sword. There's no confirmed S tier with more than 1 mark, 1 ability, she says. You have 11 markings. All 11 have just classified SSS. That tier isn't supposed to exist outside theory. We assumed the system capped at S. I look down at my arm. The Raven, the one my uncle inked for free because he said I looked too sad after my mom died, pulses, black light in time with my own heartbeat, like it's been asleep for 12 years and just noticed the room is on fire. So what does that mean, exactly? It means, she says, still convincing herself, that this entire chain of command answers to you before it answers to the current highest-ranked civilian. Including him. A glance toward the door. Toward Marcus, still holding court out there, still telling some kid with a busted arm that once the S-tier squads form up, ordinary people will finally be safe. Is there a board? I ask. Somewhere everyone can see the rankings? It updates publicly within the hour. Good. The raven flexes against my skin like it's stretching after a long, long nap. Something old and hungry settles into my chest, not fear. Recognition. A lock finally needing a key that's been sitting in a drawer for 12 years. Let's finalize it, then. Threat index, unknown. Suppression removed. That's all the notification gives me. No elaboration. Just the sentence, sitting there in my head like it expects me to already understand it. I don't. Not yet. I walk back into the assessment hall. My name populates the public board first. 11 lines beneath it. 11 SSS markings. Marcus's name sits 8 rows down. 1 S-tier ability. The room goes dead silent. Then somebody near the back reads my name out loud, disbelieving, and the whisper ripples outward like it's got nowhere else to go. That's a mistake, Marcus says. That has to be a mistake. I smile at him. Calm. Unbothered. The exact face I've spent a lifetime perfecting for people who decided I didn't matter before they'd even looked twice. Check again, I say. It's not. The board doesn't lie. People try anyway. Obvious glitch, Marcus announces, louder now, playing to the crowd gathering around us. SSS isn't even real. Everyone knows the cap is S. This guy probably hacked the terminal. A murmur. A few of his followers glance at each other, wanting to agree, finding it a little difficult while black ink is crawling faintly up my forearm in real time. Funny, I say. I've been getting scanned 3 separate times by actual scientists. When exactly was I supposed to hack anything? His jaw tightens. He's not used to being questioned with an audience watching. 3 days ago he'd have steamrolled right over me and everyone would have nodded along, because that's what people do around confident men who glow when they flex. Rankings on a board don't care about charisma. The lead scientist steps out, clipboard raised, voice cutting through the noise. For everyone's information, the classification system updated 3 hours ago after we discovered a tier previously believed theoretical. Mr. Cole's results have been independently verified twice. There is no error. Marcus recalculates. I watch him do it, the exact look people get when the story they've been telling themselves stops matching the facts standing in front of them. He straightens his jacket. Forces the smile back on like it's a weapon that's worked on everyone his whole life. Well then. Congratulations, tattoo boy. Light. Breezy. An edge underneath now. Guess we'll be working together. I assume you'll want to join my unit, since I'm still the highest combat asset until your forbidden ink proves itself in the field. Actually, says a new voice, unit assignments are being restructured. Mr. Cole leads Unit 1. Mr. Vale, you've been reassigned to Unit 3. Everyone turns. The squad formation officer, tired, 50-something, clearly out of patience for teenage ego. Tablet in hand, scrolling live. Marcus's face does something complicated. Unit 3? That's scouting. That's not even combat. Correct. Combat squads form around the 2 highest verified assets in the district. That's Mr. Cole. And, as of an hour ago, a confirmed double S in the Eastern Bloc. You're currently 3rd. I watched the crowd shift. 3 days ago, nobody would have laughed off the idea that Marcus Vale wasn't the most important person in any room. Now half of them are quietly re-angling toward me, the way people do the moment they figure out which way the wind is actually blowing. I manifested first, Marcus mutters, mostly to himself now. I've kept people safe since day 1. You think 11 random tattoos beat an actual combat awakening? They're not random, I say. Each one does something different. Want a demonstration, or are we done here? I don't wait for an answer. I focus on the raven. Not commanding it, exactly, more like remembering what it already knows how to do. The raven lifts off my skin. Not a hologram. Not an illusion. Ink deciding it's done being flat, real black feathers edged in that same not quite purple burn. It circles once above the crowd, close enough that people flinch, and lands on my shoulder, warm and solid and looking entirely too pleased with itself for something that was a tattoo 2 hours ago. Somebody screams. Not fear, exactly. The specific shock of watching the impossible happen 10 feet away. Marcus goes very quiet. Scouting familiar, I say, mostly for the crowd. Aerial recon, apparently. 10 more where that came from. Haven't tested most of them yet. 11 markings. 1 tested. 10 unknowns waiting under the skin. Here's the part that should have scared me more than it did. The officer whistles low. Unit 1 reports to briefing in 20. You'll have full pick of support staff. I nod. The Raven shifts on my shoulder, one eye tracking Marcus the entire time like it's cataloging him for later. He doesn't say anything else. Just turns toward the Unit 3 table, shoulders stiff, the crowd thinning around him step by step, drifting instead toward me and the bird that's apparently mine now. I don't gloat. Don't need to. The board already did that for me. But heading toward the briefing room, I catch him glancing back once. The look isn't confusion anymore. It's colder than that. It's a promise. The briefing room used to be a school gymnasium. Now it's got maps taped over basketball hoops and a folding table full of radios that only half work. I walk in with the Raven on my shoulder, and every head turns. Unit 1. This is your captain. Everyone, Ethan Cole. Nobody argues. That's new. 3 days ago I was the guy nobody looked at twice at my uncle's shop. Now 5 armed adults are watching me like I'm about to hand down orders from a burning mountain. Sit wherever, I say, because I genuinely do not know how captains are supposed to talk. I'm figuring this out same as you. A woman near the front laughs, short and surprised. Refreshing. Last captain told us he'd trained for this his whole life. Died on day 1. Comforting, I say. Sophia. Ex-guard. Knows weapons. Doesn't know a single thing about the bird. You? Neither do I, honestly. Found out an hour ago. The officer taps the map. Priority, Eastern Residential. Confirmed monster nest, old shopping district, feeding off survivors who didn't make shelter in time. Unit 3 scouts the perimeter. You clear the nest once they mark it. I nod like this is normal information for me to receive, even though 2 hours ago my biggest concern was whether my uncle's shop had power back on. Sir. Priya, lean, sharp-eyed, raises a hand. Unit 3 is Vale Squad. If there's friction between captains, there won't be friction, I say. I don't have a problem with Marcus. He's just going to have to get used to me existing. Sophia snorts. I'm starting to like her. We move out 20 minutes later. The city looks like a photograph of normal life, set on fire halfway through. Overturned cars. Boarded windows. Somewhere distant, the wrong-shaped shriek of something that used to be a dog before the sky cracked. My Raven flies ahead, weaving between building husks, feeding images straight into my head like it's done this for years instead of hours. There. I point toward a collapsed mall. Nests in the food court. 6 of them. Big ones. Sophia raises an eyebrow. You're seeing it? From here? The Raven's eyes are kind of my eyes now. Still getting used to that part. We approach carefully, and the other tattoos hum against my skin, low and expectant, instruments tuning before a performance. There's a mountain range on my right forearm I haven't tested. A geometric pattern on my ribs from a college dare. A small compass on my wrist from the week my mom died. 11 markings. 10 unknowns. The first monster comes off a collapsed escalator, all wrong angles and too many teeth. Sophia drops it clean before I even react. The rest scatter toward the noise. Test 1. I press 2 fingers to the mountain range. The ground erupts. Not lava. Not rock. Something between the two, jagged black stone bursting upward in a wall that catches three monsters mid-charge and pins them like insects against glass. The stone hums with that same not quite purple burn, and I realize, distantly, that whatever this power actually is, it stopped being decoration a long time before today. Ethan. Priya, tight. Behind you. I turn. A fourth one, faster, already airborne toward my throat. No time to choose. The compass flares. Suddenly I'm 3 feet left of where I was half a second ago, watching the monster crash into empty air. Did you just teleport? Sophia stares. No idea what that just was. Let's call it that. The stone wall starts cracking under the trapped monster's combined weight. I don't wait to find out what breaking looks like. I press the raven and let instinct answer. The raven screeches and multiplies, 5 afterimages made solid, diving with talons that leave black-edged wounds that don't heal. By the time the dust settles, 6 kills, 0 injuries. Sophia's staring at me like she's revising every assumption she made 20 minutes ago. Captain, Priya says slowly, I don't think I've ever seen a first mission go like that. 8 tattoos still untested. 8 unknowns, patient, like they've been waiting 12 years for exactly this. Here's the part that would have sounded insane to me 4 hours ago. I'm not scared of the 7 that haven't answered yet. I'm scared of the day they do. 4 markings in, and I've already teleported, summoned a flock of living ink, and turned solid stone out of nothing. Whatever the other 7 are saving themselves for, it's probably not going to be a gentle introduction. Neither have I say. Let's head back before Marcus's squad shows up asking questions. We round the corner. Marcus is already there, staring at the black stone spikes jutting out of the ground like a monument, at the ravens still circling lazily overhead. He doesn't say anything sarcastic this time. He just watches. Silent. Calculating. The exact look people wear right before they stop underestimating you and start actively resenting you instead. Impressive, he says finally, hands in his pockets, every step casual on purpose. Guess the scanner wasn't glitching. Guess not. Unit 3 cleared the perimeter markers for you. You're welcome. A glance at the stone spikes. Bit excessive. For 6 low-tier spawns. Didn't want to leave anything for round 2. Efficient beats dramatic. A couple of his squad snicker before catching themselves. His jaw ticks. Secondary nest, 2 blocks north, he says. Bigger one. Command wants eyes on it before nightfall. Might as well combine efforts since we're both out here. I glance at Sophia. Small nod, she doesn't love it, trusts me anyway. Fine. Lead the way. You already scouted it. We move north together, 2 units parallel down a crack street lined with dead cars, an invisible line down the middle nobody wants to cross first. So, Marcus says eventually, falling into step, voice low enough only I can hear. 11 SSS. That's a lot of power for someone who spent a decade drawing on himself for fun. Didn't realize tattoos needed a purpose beyond looking cool. They didn't. Until 3 days ago. Convenient, don't you think? The strongest power in recorded history, handed to some tattoo shop kid nobody's ever heard of. You say that like I asked for it. I say it because I've been doing this since day 1. I earned my rank fighting. Not standing in a scanner line. Smooth. Reasonable sounding. The exact tone people use right before they say something built to cut. Must be nice. Not having to earn any of it. I stop walking. He stops a beat later, like he wasn't expecting an answer. You want to know what I earned? 12 years. Every one of them stacking up behind the words. 12 years of people looking at my arms and deciding I was a delinquent before they said hello. Jobs I didn't get because visible ink made me unprofessional. My uncle going broke keeping that shop open because half this town thought getting ink said something about your character. I didn't get handed anything 3 days ago, Marcus. 3 days ago, the world just finally started reading what was already written on me. He doesn't have a quick answer for that. Then his radio crackles. Unit 3, Unit 1, secondary nest confirmed, 200 meters ahead. Numbers higher than estimate. Requesting immediate. Static. A scream. Here's the part that turns a bad afternoon into the worst day of my life. My raven's vision floods my head before anyone can react. Not 6 monsters. Not 12. A wave, 30, easy, pouring out of a collapsed parking structure like the building itself is bleeding shadows. Ambush, I say, already moving. Choke point, but too many to hold alone. Marcus's composure cracks entirely. Whatever ego war we were having a minute ago evaporates the instant rail numbers hit the field. Fall back to the intersection, form a line, don't let them flank. No time. I'm already cutting him off. Sophia, Priya, civilians behind us. Marcus, left flank. I've got center. Half a second where I expect him to argue. He just nods, sharp, fast, and barks the order to his own squad without missing a beat. Whatever else he is, he's not stupid enough to let pride get people killed. Threat convergence, 12%. The number sits in my head, cold and small, like it knows it's going to grow. The first wave hits like a flood breaking a dam. No time to think about which tattoo answers. My body moves on the same instinct that saved me at the food court, and this time it isn't the compass or the mountain range that answers first. It's the geometric pattern on my ribs. The one from Adair. The one I never told my uncle the meaning of, because I honestly didn't know it had one. It ignites, and the world slows to something like still water. Everything drags. Monsters mid-charge look almost lazy, limbs dragging through air gone thick as syrup. Marcus's shout to his squad stretches into something low and warped. Even the dust hangs suspended, catching the dying light like frozen static. I'm the only thing moving at normal speed. I don't waste the moment. I walk through the frozen wave like a museum exhibit, marking targets, angles I'd never reach in real time. The compass hums, ready, and I chain it, short bursts of displacement stacked one after another while the world outside stays slow. By the time the pattern's effect fades, I'm behind the largest of them. A hulking thing at the wave's center, the others orbiting it like it's the reason they're organized at all. Pack leader mutation. Command didn't brief anyone on this. Command didn't know. Time snaps back with a lurch. Sound crashes in all at once, screams, gunfire, the wet shriek of things dying. I press the raven and the mountain range together, both at once for the first time. Black stone erupts beneath the leader in spikes while 5 ravens converge from above in the same instant, a pincer I didn't consciously design, executed anyway, like my body understood the choreography before my brain caught up. The leader goes down screaming. The rest of the wave, cut loose from whatever coordination it was following, scatters into easier targets. Marcus's squad picks off stragglers on the left. Sophia and Priya hold the line. Within 2 minutes, the street's quiet except for retreating monster noise and everyone's ragged breathing. Marcus reaches me slowly, blood on his sword arm, otherwise unhurt, staring at the black stone spikes and the ravens circling the fallen leader. "What was that?" he says. Not really a question. A man double-checking that what he saw actually happened. Time dilation, I think. New. Found out 30 seconds ago. You didn't know you had a power that stops time, and you just discovered it mid-ambush. Would you rather I'd found out on a calmer afternoon? He doesn't answer. For the first time since the assessment hall, there's no sarcasm in his face. Just something quieter. Recalculating everything he thought he understood about how this world sorts its winners from its losers. Command's going to want a report, he says. Pack leaders aren't supposed to show up this early. If there's one, there's more forming. Then we get ahead of it instead of waiting. Sophia jogs over. Injuries minor. That leader would have flattened us without the wall pinning it. Noted for next time, I say. Eyes on every reported nest before nightfall. Not just the ones command flags priority. Marcus studies me. Then nods, slow, like a decision he's not comfortable with but can't argue out of. Fine. We pool intel. Both squads. For now. For now, I agree. It's not friendship. Not respect, not fully. But it's more than either of us had an hour ago, a truce built on the very simple fact that 30 monsters don't care whose ego gets bruised first. For what it's worth, he says quietly, just to me, as the others walk ahead. I still think you got lucky. Nobody just gets that. Maybe, I say. Or maybe the world just started reading what was already written. Either way, you're going to have to work with it. Might as well stop wasting energy resenting it. He doesn't answer. Doesn't argue either. We walk back through the ruined street, and I get the feeling this uneasy truce is the closest thing to peace either of us gets for a long, long time. We don't get 3 blocks before it stops being a feeling and starts being a problem. Threat convergence, 38%. The number climbs in my head without warning, no source, no context, just there, higher than it was an hour ago at the ambush site. I stop walking. What, Marcus says, reading my face. That number. The convergence thing. It jumped. What number? You don't get one? No. He studies me, something wary creeping back into his expression, the old kind of wary, the kind from 3 days ago. Should I? I don't know. Maybe it's mine. Maybe it only shows up for whoever's carrying 11 markings instead of 1. Here's the part that should worry you more than it worries me right now, because I've had exactly 2 days to get used to numbers appearing in my skull with no explanation attached. If the convergence reading climbed from 12 to 38 in under an hour, whatever it's measuring isn't slowing down. It's building towards something, the same way that Spire 2 blocks north of nowhere is apparently building towards something, and I don't yet have a way to tell if those two somethings are the same thing wearing 2 different faces. Sophia catches up, breathing hard from the tail end of the fight. We need to get the civilians we pulled out of the ambush zone back to shelter before dark. Injuries are minor, but a couple of the older ones aren't going to make the walk fast. Go, I say. Priya, go with her. Marcus and I will sweep the block once more before we head in, make sure nothing regroups behind us. Marcus raises an eyebrow. Just the 2 of us? You handled a pack leader fine an hour ago. I think you can manage a sweep. He almost smiles at that. Almost. The sweep turns up nothing for the first 10 minutes, collapsed storefronts, a burned-out delivery van, the kind of silence that feels less like safety and more like something holding its breath nearby. Then the ring pattern on my wrist, the one that gave me nothing in the basement 2 hours from now, in a future I haven't lived yet, decides this is apparently the moment it wants to exist. It flares without me touching it. That's new, Marcus says, stepping back on reflex. I don't know what it's doing until it's already done it, a faint circle of light expanding outward from where I'm standing, 30 feet, 40, catching on shapes hidden behind the burned-out van and 2 collapsed storefronts, lighting them up in my vision like a heat signature that isn't heat at all. 3 of them. Small, hunched, patient, the exact kind of patient the ambush wave wasn't. Scouts, I say. Not attacking. Watching. Watching us, or watching the district? No idea. But they're not alone out here, and neither, apparently, is whatever's building that spire. We clear the 3 without much trouble. Marcus's sword takes 2, the mountain range tattoo handles the 3rd before it can bolt and report back to wherever it came from, but the ring pattern's flare doesn't fade once the threat's gone. It keeps humming faintly against my wrist the entire walk back, a low, quiet static I haven't felt from any of the other markings yet. 5 for 11, I mutter. What? Nothing. Just counting. By the time we reach the courthouse, the convergence number in my head has climbed again. Threat convergence, 47%. I don't mention it to anyone yet. Some things you sit on until you actually understand them, and right now I understand this number about as well as I understood 11 forbidden markings 4 hours before an apocalypse decided otherwise. Command sets up in the old district courthouse, because apparently even the apocalypse respects a building with good bones and a generator that still runs. By the time our squads report in, half the shelter's already heard some version of the food court story, and it's grown in the retelling the way stories do. By the 3rd telling, the wall's 20 feet tall and the ravens are a flock that blotted out the sun. I don't correct anybody. Let the story do what stories do. The officer who reassigned Marcus this morning is waiting in what used to be a courtroom, converted into a war room, maps over the judge's bench. Beside him, someone new, a woman in a coat somehow still clean, flanked by two guards who don't look like ordinary soldiers. Ethan Cole. Before anyone introduces her. District Coordinator Reyes. Resource Allocation and Command Structure, Eastern Zone. Didn't realize we had a coordinator yet. We were improvising. Until your assessment came through this morning. She studies me the way people study something they're deciding whether to fear or be grateful for. 11 SSS markings isn't a statistic we planned around. It changes the regional strategy. How so? Until an hour ago, containment assumed a ceiling of S tier. Slow, defensive consolidation. Hold shelters, minimize exposure, wait for the capital. With verified SSS in the field, we consider offense. Clearing nests before they mature into pack leader mutations. A pause. Like the one your squad encountered an hour ago. Marcus crosses his arms. With respect, Coordinator, one good encounter doesn't mean you restructure a strategy around one person. I'm aware of your concerns, Mr. Vale. Her tone doesn't change, but it's clear she anticipated this. Your squad's performance is noted and valued. But strategic planning follows verified capability. Not seniority. Something in Marcus's expression tightens. 3 days of being the district's golden boy, and now he's watching the title get quietly reassigned in a courtroom, in front of his own squad. There's something else. She turns to a laptop propped on the bench. Since this morning's update, 2 more SSS-adjacent readings from neighboring districts. Nothing at your level, Mr. Cole. But Command's treating this as a pattern, not an anomaly. Meaning what? Meaning other coordinators want access to whatever produced results like yours today. Capital Command's already requested your transfer for evaluation. Sophia's jaw tightens. Priya glances between us like she's bracing for a fight. I'm not leaving this district, I say, flat, before Reyes finishes. My uncle's shelter is 3 blocks from here. Everyone I've got left is in this zone. I didn't ask to be SSS tier. I'm not abandoning my people over it. Reyes studies me for a long moment. Something like approval flickers. That's the answer I was hoping for. Loyalty to territory tends to stabilize command structures. I'll inform Capital you've declined. It buys time. Not immunity. They may push again. Let them push. Marcus clears his throat. If Capital's watching this district, every unit here becomes a talking point in politics above our heads. Correct. Which is why I need both units cooperating. Not competing. Fine, he says eventually. Joint operations. For the district's sake. There's one more matter, Reyes says. Nest cluster forming near the old industrial park. Larger than anything documented so far. If the pattern holds, it may produce something stronger than what you encountered today. I want both units scouting it by morning. Together. How much stronger? Sophia asks. Unknown. Which is precisely the problem. Countdown to next confirmed escalation, unknown. Could be hours. Could already be too late. As the meeting breaks, Marcus lingers by the courtroom doors. You could have taken the transfer, he says. Capital's offering resources. Protection. Better gear than anything we've got. Why turn that down for a shelter and a couple squadmates you met 3 hours ago? Because that's not why any of this matters to me. I spent 12 years being told I didn't matter because of what was on my skin. I'm not letting a capital committee decide I only matter now because of what my skin can do. This district's mine. These are my people. That's the whole answer. He studies me a long moment. Something shifts behind his expression I can't name yet. Not respect. Not exactly. Something closer to recognition, one stubborn person recognizing another. Industrial park at dawn, he says, and walks off without waiting for a response. I watch him go, and for the first time since this morning, I get the sense that whatever's waiting at that industrial park is going to test every single one of my 11 markings at once. Dawn comes gray and quiet. Earned quiet, not peaceful quiet, the whole city holding its breath before something bad. Both units meet an hour before sunrise, headlamps off, moving on nothing but my Raven's night vision feeding straight into my skull. Report, Marcus says, crouched beside me behind the husk of a delivery truck. Nests bigger than command estimated. A lot bigger. I close my eyes, letting the Raven's view overlay my own. Rows of collapsed warehouses. Beneath them, something pulsing in a color that makes my stomach turn deep, wrong red instead of the usual monster black. There's something at the center. Not like the leader from yesterday. Bigger. Structured. Like it's been building something. Building what? Don't know yet. The Raven won't get closer. Like it's scared. Sophia glances over sharply. Your familiar gets scared? Apparently. First time. That unsettles the group more than any headcount could. Priya checks her rifle for the third time in as many minutes. Marcus's squad shifts, uneasy, and Marcus himself, 3 days of performing effortless confidence, has gone quiet and focused in a way I haven't seen yet. We need actual eyes on it, he says. Not just bird vision. If this is what Command's afraid of, we can't afford assumptions. Agreed. I stand. I'll go. Compass gets me in and out fast if it goes wrong. Not alone, Sophia says immediately. I'll go with him, Marcus says, surprising everyone, including, judging by his face, himself. 2 SSS assets beats 1 asset scouting alone. Someone needs to report back if this goes wrong. Nobody argues. We move together, low, fast, through the gaps between warehouse shells, the wrongness of the place growing heavier with every step, until we reach a chain-link fence overlooking the park's central loading yard. What's inside stops us both cold. It isn't a monster. It's a structure, fused, calcified husks of dozens of smaller monsters, stacked and melted together into something almost architectural. A jagged black spire, 3 stories, rising out of the loading yard floor. At its base, dozens of smaller creatures move in slow, deliberate patterns, tending something, feeding fragments of debris and, worse, what looks like human remains into the spire's base. That's not a nest, Marcus says quietly. That's a hive. They're building something, I whisper. Not surviving. Building. Structure integrity, 61% and climbing. Before either of us processes what that means, the pulsing red light at the spire's center flares. We duck instinctively. When I look again, something new has emerged from the peak, humanoid in shape, wrong in every proportion, skin fused with fragments of the same black calcified material. It turns its head toward the fence. Toward us. Even from this distance, I get the distinct, bone-deep sense that it already knows exactly where we are. Move, Marcus says, already backing away. Now. We don't get 3 steps before the ground behind us erupts, smaller monsters bursting from burrows we never scouted, cutting off our retreat. Marcus's sword flares gold, cutting down 2 in one arc, but more keep coming, and the humanoid lets out a shriek that ripples outward like a physical wave, knocking us both off balance. Ethan. Sophia's voice, distant, from beyond the warehouses. What's happening? No breath to answer. The compass flares, I grab Marcus's arm on pure instinct, dragging him through space as the ground where we stood collapses inward into another burrow. You can bring people with you? He shouts, stumbling upright 20 feet closer to the tree lean. Didn't know until right now, honestly. The commander raises one arm. Every smaller monster in the yard turns in perfect unison, like puppets responding to the same set of strings. It's commanding them, Marcus says, breathing hard. That thing isn't just strong. It's intelligent. All 11 markings hum at once, like they finally recognize something worth waking fully for. The geometric pattern ignites, slowing the world around us, but thinner this time, harder to hold, like whatever's radiating off that spire's peak is strong enough to resist it. We can't win this here, I force out through gritted teeth, the slowed world straining against my grip. Not scouting alone. We need the full squads. Probably commands heavier support on top of that. Marcus doesn't argue. No ego in his voice at all for the first time since I've met him. Then let's get out and report exactly what we saw. Because if that thing finishes whatever it's building, this district isn't the only one that's going to have a problem. The time dilation snaps as we sprint for the fence line, the shriek behind us rising into something that sounds disturbingly like it's calling for reinforcements of its own. We make the tree lean just as the smaller monsters lose our trail, scattering back toward the spire like the commander called them off rather than let them chase. That tells me something worse than any raw power reading, whatever's controlling that hive is patient. It's not wasting resources on 2 scouts through open ground. It's saving them. Sophia and Priya meet us halfway, weapons up, faces tight with the particular relief of people who spent the last 5 minutes assuming they'd have to explain 2 deaths to command. Report. It's not a nest, Marcus says, still catching his breath. It's a construction site. Structure at the center, built out of fused monster remains. 3 stories, maybe more. Something at the top directing the smaller ones like a hive mind. Directing them how? Like a general. Not instinct. Strategy. It held its forces back the second chasing us stopped being worth the exposure. Priya's face goes pale under the dirt and sweat. That's not apocalypse standard behavior. That's above anything command briefed us on. Which is why we reported now, Marcus says, already moving toward the rendezvous. Not after a full engagement. If that thing finishes whatever it's building, we're not talking about a district problem anymore. We move fast back through the ruined blocks. Marcus falls into step without complaint, and there's a version of this exact scenario, 24 hours ago, where he'd spend the whole walk needling me about ego or luck. Instead he's quiet, processing, glancing at the spire's rough direction on the horizon like he can still feel that shriek in his bones. You okay? I ask eventually. Define okay, he says. 24 hours ago I was the strongest thing in this district. Today something looked directly at us from 300 meters and calculated whether we were worth killing. I don't think okay applies anymore. Welcome to yesterday, I say. That's roughly how I felt discovering 11 forbidden markings before breakfast. He almost laughs. Almost. Reyes is waiting before we even finish crossing the yard, flanked by aides, an expression that suggests she read the tension on our faces from 100 feet out. Report. No preamble. We give her everything. The spire. The fused remains. The commander. The coordinated retreat. She doesn't interrupt once, just listens with the stillness of someone cataloging every detail for a report she's about to send somewhere far above her own authority. This changes containment classification entirely, she says. A directed hive intelligence isn't something regional command has protocol for. This goes to Capital immediately. With respect, Marcus says, Capital's response on anything not immediately profitable to them has been slow all week. That spire isn't going to wait for a committee. I'm aware. Her tone sharpens, just slightly. Which is why I'm authorizing preemptive strike planning at the district level. Effective immediately. Pending Capital's response, not waiting on it. You want us to hit it, I say. Before Capital even weighs in. I want options prepared. Whether we execute before authorization depends on how fast that structure finishes what it's building. She turns to an aide. Pull satellite imaging, last 24 hours, if we have any coverage left. While the aide works, she turns back to me, the measuring looks sharper now. More urgent. Mr. Cole. Your time dilation. How long can you sustain it? Untested past 90 seconds. It strained against whatever that thing was radiating. I'm not confident it holds at all if we go back in force. And your other markings? 8 remain untested. Correct. Then we may need to test them faster than either of us would like. The first crack of visible strain I've seen from her. Because if capital drags its feet the way Mr. Vale suggests, this district may only have one asset capable of meeting whatever that structure is preparing to unleash. Sophia glances at me, unreadable. Priya shifts, uneasy. Marcus says nothing, just watches with an expression finally, fully free of the smugness he walked in with 3 days ago, replaced by something uncomfortably close to real concern. Then I guess we find out what the other 8 do, I say, before that spire finishes counting down. Briefing in 1 hour. Full squads. Bring every asset this district has left. As she turns to her aides, I catch Marcus watching the horizon, jaw tight. For the first time since this apocalypse started, I get the feeling that whatever ego war existed between us is officially, completely over. Whatever's coming next isn't going to care which of us has the better power. It's only going to care whether we're strong enough, together, to survive it. The hour before the strike briefing is the longest hour of my life. I spend most of it in the courthouse basement with Sophia and Priya, trying to figure out what the other 8 tattoos actually do before I have to bet a district's survival on the answer. Start with the small one, Sophia says, nodding at the compass. You know what that does. Build outward. Compass. Short-range displacement. Confirmed. Works with a passenger, confirmed an hour ago. I roll my sleeve further, past the Raven, past the mountain range, to a small spiral just below my elbow, one I got the summer I turned 20 because I liked the shape and nothing more. This one, I've got nothing. Never even thought about it until today. I press 2 fingers against it. Wait. Nothing. Maybe it needs a trigger condition, Priya offers. Some of the initial S-tier awakenings needed specific circumstances. Emotional states. Physical thresholds. I think back to the industrial park. To the moment the commander turned toward us and I felt real fear for the first time since this started. The geometric pattern answered instantly then, without me choosing it. Maybe that's how all of them work, less a menu, more instinct answering exactly what a moment calls for. Can't force it, I say, rolling my sleeve back down. Guess we find out what the spiral does when the situation actually needs it. Comforting, Sophia mutters. Great. Just great. Here's the part one don't say out loud, because saying it makes it real. 7 markings are still a complete blank. Not untested. Blank. No hum, no flex, no recognition. Just ink, sitting there, waiting on a trigger I can't name and can't force. I roll up my other sleeve anyway. A small sunshape on my bicep, half-finished looking on purpose, the artist's idea of unfinished intentionally back when that was just a style choice and not a metaphor for my entire life. I press 2 fingers to it. Nothing. A jagged line across my collarbone, the one my uncle drew freehand the week I turned 18, no design in mind, just needle and instinct. I press it. Marking status, dormant. Condition unmet. That's it. That's the whole notification. No hint what the condition is. There's a pattern here somewhere, Priya says, watching me strike out twice in a row. The ones that fired so far fired under threat. Direct threat, close range, no time to think. So the rest might just be waiting for something worse than what I've already survived, I say. That's not comforting either, Sophia says. Wasn't trying to be. I press the last one I can reach without stripping my shirt off in a basement in front of 2 people I met yesterday, a small ring pattern circling my wrist opposite the compass, one my uncle called a matching set when he inked it, no explanation beyond that it looked balanced next to the other one. Nothing. 7 blanks. 4 answered. 11 markings, and I'm still mostly a stranger to my own arms. For what it's worth, Sophia says, standing, brushing dust off her knees, for confirmed abilities is already more than anyone else in this district has. Whatever the other 7 turn out to be, you've got time to find out. Do I, though? I say it lighter than I mean it. Reyes just told us that Spire finishes building in 36 hours. Maybe less. I don't exactly get to schedule a slow discovery process around that. Nobody has an answer for that, so nobody tries to give me one. Marcus finds us 20 minutes later, changed into actual combat gear, sword sheathed instead of drawn and glowing for once. Reyes wants final headcount, he says. Command's response came back. And they're sending support. Eventually. 48 hours minimum before any capital assets reach this district. His mouth tightens. Reyes is proceeding with the district-level strike regardless. Says waiting risks giving that spire time to finish. She's not wrong. That thing's getting stronger the longer it stands there feeding on debris and remains. We wait, we fight something worse. I know. I agree with her, which feels strange to say about anything involving less waiting for backup. He hesitates. Something unreadable crossing his face. Ethan. I want to say something. I need you to actually hear it instead of assuming I'm setting up a jab. I wait. Yesterday, before the food court, I was ready to spend this whole apocalypse resenting you for outranking me on a technicality I didn't understand yet. That spire changed something. I'm not interested in competing with you anymore. I want to know what it takes to beat something like that. Together. Pride doesn't matter if that thing finishes what it's building and this district falls. Not an apology. Close enough that I recognize the weight of it anyway. Appreciated, I say. For what it's worth, I never wanted the competition either. You made it one. I was just tired of losing arguments to people who decided I didn't matter before they looked at what I could do. He nods, slow, actually absorbing it instead of waiting for his turn to talk. Briefings in 10, he says. Reyes wants both units integrated instead of running parallel like yesterday. You're leading it. Me? 11 markings. Only confirmed asset that's gotten close to that thing and survived. It's not a popularity contest. It's just the math. The briefing room is packed. Both squads. Reyes and her aides. A scattering of district personnel folded in given the scale of what's coming. Reyes lays out satellite imaging on the courtroom bench, the spire visible now, dark and jagged against the industrial park's collapsed rooftops. Structure's grown 11% in the last 18 hours, she says. At current rate, whatever it's building reaches completion within roughly 36 hours. We strike before that happens. 36 hours. Maybe less. Here's the part that should terrify everyone in this room more than the satellite imagery does, and maybe it's the only reason I don't say it out loud. The convergence number in my head has climbed twice since yesterday without a single new nest reported anywhere on Reyes's board. Whatever's actually building towards something out there, the spire is the only piece of it we've managed to see coming. Strategy? Sophia asks. Two-phase, I say, stepping up before Reyes finishes turning to me, more confidence in my voice than I actually feel. Phase 1, Marcus's squad and mine draw the smaller hive units away from the base. Force the structure to commit its guard or leave itself exposed. Phase 2, I get in close enough to test the untested markings against the commander directly, while support keeps the swarm occupied. That puts the most risk on you personally, Reyes says. I've got 11 forbidden tier abilities and I've used maybe 4 of them on purpose. If there's a way to end this fast, it's testing what the rest can do where it counts. Not holding them back out of caution we don't have time for. Marcus studies the map, then me, something steady settling into his expression. Then Unit 3 holds the guard units, he says. Whatever you need from us to get you that opening, you've got it. Reyes looks between us a long moment. Cautious approval. Strike begins at dawn. Get some rest if you can. Tomorrow, this district finds out exactly what those 11 markings are capable of. Dawn breaks over the industrial park the same gray, quiet way it did yesterday, except there's no sneaking this time. No scouting from behind a chain-link fence. Both units move in together, full strength, Reyes' support teams fanned along the perimeter with everything the district has left to give. The spire looks bigger in daylight. Bigger and worse, the fused calcified remains catching early light in a way that makes the whole structure look almost alive. Breathing slow. Patient. At the center of everything it's built. Phase 1, I say into the calm Marcus, draw the guard. His sword flares gold as he leads his squad in a wide arc along the yard's edge, drawing dozens of smaller hive units the way we planned. They break from the spire's base in a ragged wave, chasing the noise exactly like yesterday's ambush, except this time we set the trap instead of walking into it. Guards committed. Marcus, breathing hard over the calm spire's base, is exposed. Go, now, while you've got the window. I move. The compass flares, short bursts of displacement carrying me across open ground faster than anything with legs could follow. Within seconds I'm at the spire's base, staring up at the commander, already turning toward me with that same slow, calculating awareness from yesterday. It doesn't shriek this time. It just watches. Patient. Like it's been waiting for exactly this moment since it first sensed me at the fence line. Threat convergence, 94%. The number slams into my head hard enough that I actually flinch, and for the first time since it started appearing, I understand, in the worst possible way, exactly what it's been counting toward. Not the spire finishing construction. Something bigger than that. Something this thing in front of me is only the first piece of. Here's the part nobody warned me about, and I mean that literally, because there was no manual, no orientation packet, no kindly old mentor sitting me down to explain what 11 forbidden markings actually cost. You don't get to process the number. You don't get a minute to sit with the fact that whatever's coming next is almost here. You just get the 94%, sitting in your skull like a countdown clock somebody else is holding the detonator for, and then you get exactly one more heartbeat before the thing in front of you decides to stop watching and start moving. The commander moves. Not fast. Deliberate, the way something moves when it's already decided the outcome and is only going through the motions of confirming it. Fused black plating shifts along its shoulders, drawing inward, condensing, like it's been holding something back and just ran out of patience for holding it back any longer. Whatever you're building, I say, mostly to myself, since I doubt it understands words or cares, ends today. I press my palm flat against every marking on my left arm at once, raven, mountain range, compass, geometric pattern, and something new answers alongside them. The spiral finally ignites. Not a conscious choice. A response to the sheer scale of the threat standing above me. Here's the part that makes this whole thing insane. Light erupts from my arm, black-edged and burning, and the world doesn't just slow this time, it fractures, splitting into overlapping instants where I'm simultaneously moving through 5 different angles of attack. Ravens diving from above. Stone erupting below. The compass carrying fragments of myself through gaps in the commander's guard faster than it can track a single version of me. The commander finally reacts. Fused black plating along its arms hardening into something like armor. But it's reacting to 5 things at once, and even something that intelligent only has so many ways to defend against an attack that stopped being singular. The spiral answers last. Only in the moment it activates do I understand what it does. It doesn't attack. It binds. Black light lances out, wraps around the commander's fused limbs. Not cutting. Not burning. Holding. Anchoring it in place the way roots anchor a tree, patient and absolute. Marking 11 of 11, online. Marcus. My voice fractures slightly under the strain of holding 5 overlapping instants together. Now, everything you've got, center mass, while it's held. His sword comes down gold and blinding, cutting clean through the exposed plating at the commander's chest. The creature that's been building something monstrous for 2 days lets out one final shriek, not commanding, not calculating, just dying, before the fused structure beneath it starts collapsing in on itself. The smaller hive units scattered around the yard freeze mid-motion and crumble into inert husks, cut off from whatever intelligence was directing them. The spire falls in on itself, a slow, grinding collapse, and the industrial park goes quiet in a way it hasn't been quiet since this whole thing started. I drop to one knee. The 5 overlapping instants of myself fold back into one exhausted body. Every one of my 11 markings, finally, mercifully still. Marcus reaches me first, sword sheathed, breathing hard, offering a hand instead of a smart remark for the first time since we met. You good? Define good, I say, echoing his words from yesterday. He actually laughs. Short. Real. Reyes arrives 20 minutes later as cleanup crews start combing the wreckage, her expression somewhere between relief and disbelief. District-ending threat, neutralized in under an hour. Before Capital's support even finished loading transport. She surveys the ruin of the spire. I'll be filing a report Capital cannot afford to sit on. Just doing the math Marcus mentioned, I say. Strongest asset, biggest threat. Wasn't complicated once we stopped competing over who deserved to lead it. The district owes you both, Reyes says. I imagine word of this travels well beyond our borders by tonight. She's not wrong. By evening the story's already spreading through the shelter faster than the food court story did, growing the way these things always grow, except this time nobody has to exaggerate much. 11 forbidden markings, once dismissed as decoration on a tattoo shop kid nobody looked at twice, now standing as the reason an entire district is still breathing. 11 for 11. Guess the ink wasn't finished with me after all. Marcus finds me later that night, sitting on the courthouse steps, watching my raven preen on the railing beside me like it's been mine forever instead of 2 days. For what it's worth, he says, sitting without asking, I'm glad the scanner wasn't broken. Yeah, I say, watching the raven settle its wings, feeling 11 markings finally, quietly at rest beneath my skin. Me too. I should be relieved. For about 6 seconds, I am. Then the convergence number resurfaces in my head, quiet, patient, exactly where it left off before the fight against the commander swallowed my attention whole. Threat convergence, 94%. Unchanged. It didn't drop. A district-ending threat, neutralized in under an hour, and the number that's been climbing in my skull since yesterday afternoon didn't move even 1%. Whatever it's counting toward, the spire wasn't it. The spire was a piece of it. Maybe the smallest piece. I don't get to sit with that thought for long. Reyes's radio crackles across the courthouse steps, loud enough that both of us hear it clean. Coordinator, we've got a problem. Satellite just picked up thermal blooms at 2 more sites in the district. Same signature as the industrial park. Except these 2 are already at the size the first one hit 2 days ago. Reyes goes very still. 2 sites, she repeats, like saying it's slower might change the number. Confirm that. Confirmed, coordinator. Both growing. Fast. Marcus looks at me. I look at him. Neither of us says the thing we're both thinking, which is that 36 hours was never the real clock. 36 hours was just how long it took us to notice the first one. The raven on the railing beside me goes rigid, wings half spread, head snapping toward the eastern horizon like something out there just said its name. Ethan. Sophia's voice, coming up the courthouse steps fast, tight in a way I haven't heard from her since the ambush. You need to see the satellite feed. Now. Guess the spire wasn't the only one building something, I say, standing, feeling all 11 markings shift against my skin at once, restless, none of them resting anymore. Somewhere out past the tree line, something screams. It isn't the raven. It isn't ours.